Jake Porter had been cleaning air filters on the Eternal Archive for 3 years. In all that time, not a single alien had learned his name. The Archive was a massive ship that floated through space like a metal whale. It carried treasures from dead worlds and lost civilizations. Scientists came from across the galaxy to study its collection. Diplomats visited to argue about who owned what. And somewhere in the lower decks, Jake fixed broken pipes and scrubbed carbon buildup from ventilation shafts. He did not mind being invisible. Humans were still new to the galactic community. Most species saw them as primitive creatures from a dangerous planet. Earth was classified as a death world because of its extreme gravity, violent weather, and endless predators. The fact that humans survived there at all confused most aliens. The fact that they thrived there made others nervous. Jake finished his work on Deck 17 and packed up his tools. His shift had 3 more hours, but his supervisor never checked on him. Commander Velaris ran the archive with perfect efficiency. And that efficiency did not include paying attention to maintenance workers. The commander was Cathari, a species that looked like tall insects with gleaming black shells. They communicated through clicks and hums that translation devices turned into flat, emotionless words. Varys had spoken to Jake exactly twice in 3 years. Both times, she had called him the human. Instead of using his name, Jake walked through the quiet corridors toward the artifact wing. He was not supposed to be there, but the fastest route to his next job cut through the display halls. The guards rarely stopped him. They barely noticed him at all. The Eternal Archive held thousands of relics, but everyone knew about the one in the central chamber. The Aegis of Norith stood behind 3 layers of containment fields. It was a suit of armor made from metal that scientists could not identify. The surface shifted colors like oil on water, and strange symbols crawled across its surface like living things. For 3,000 years, hundreds of species had tried to wear the Aegis. The legend said it would give its wearer the power to reshape reality. Kings had fought wars to claim it. Empires had risen and fallen seeking its strength. All of them had failed. Some who touched the armor went mad. Their minds shattered like glass, and they spent their remaining days screaming at shadows. Others simply died. Their hearts stopped, their brains went dark, and they collapsed without a mark on their bodies. The armor rejected everyone. Jake paused near the viewing gallery and looked at the Aegis through the thick glass. He had seen it many times before, but it always made him stop. There was something sad about it, standing alone in that empty chamber. A treasure that no one could use. A gift that no one could receive. He shook his head and turned to leave. He had work to do, and staring at ancient armor would not get the recyclers on Deck 12 running again. The explosion knocked him off his feet. Jake hit the floor hard and slid into the wall. Alarms screamed through the corridor as smoke poured from a ruptured conduit above him. He heard shouting in 3 different languages and the heavy footsteps of guards running toward the source of the blast. He pushed himself up and saw flames spreading across the ceiling. The fire suppression system kicked in, spraying white foam everywhere, but the damage was done. A section of the wall had collapsed, and through the gap, he could see the central chamber. The containment fields around the Aegis were flickering. One of them had already failed. Jake did not think. He moved. He ran toward the chamber and found 2 researchers trapped under fallen debris. One was Telosi, a species with 4 arms and pale blue skin. The other was something Jake did not recognize, covered in feathers and bleeding from a wound on its head. He grabbed the beam, pinning them down, and pulled. His muscles screamed, but he did not stop. Earth gravity had made humans stronger than most species realized. What felt impossible to others was merely difficult for him. The beam shifted. The Telosi scrambled free and helped pull her companion out. Jake told them to run, and they did not argue. More smoke filled the chamber. Jake could barely see, but he heard someone crying for help deeper inside. He pushed forward, one hand covering his mouth, and found a young technician curled against the wall. The boy was Luminari, a species made of light wrapped in delicate skin. He was flickering badly, which meant he was hurt. Jake picked him up and carried him toward the exit. The containment field sparked and popped around him. Through the smoke, he could see the Aegis standing perfectly still in its alcove. The chaos did not touch it. The fire did not reach it. Jake stumbled on a piece of wreckage and fell. His hand hit the floor, but it did not find metal. It found something smooth and warm, like touching sunlight made solid. He looked down and realized he had landed against the base of the armor's display. His fingers were touching the Aegis. The world went silent. Jake felt something reach into his mind. It was not painful, but it was overwhelming. Images flooded through him. Stars being born, civilizations rising and falling, wars that burned across galaxies, and a darkness that swallowed everything it touched. Then he felt the question. It had no words, but he understood it perfectly. The armor was asking him something. It wanted to know who he was. It wanted to know what he had survived. It wanted to know if he would break. Jake thought about his mother dying when he was 12. He thought about working double shifts just to afford food. He thought about every time someone told him he was not good enough, not smart enough, not strong enough. He thought about getting up anyway. The armor glowed. Golden light exploded through the chamber. Every alarm on the ship triggered at once. The smoke cleared as if pushed away by an invisible hand, and Jake found himself standing without remembering how he got to his feet. Commander Velrus arrived with a squad of guards. They stopped at the entrance and stared at the scene before them. Jake stood beside the Aegis. The armor was glowing brighter than anyone had ever seen it glow. The symbols on its surface moved faster, pulsing with energy that made the air hum. The commander checked her scanner 3 times before she spoke. Her voice had lost its usual flatness. For the first time, she sounded almost afraid. "That is impossible," she said. "The armor has never responded to anyone." Jake looked at his hand. His skin was tingling, and he could feel something pulling at him from inside the Aegis. It wanted him to come closer. It wanted him to put it on. "I just touched it by accident," he said. "I did not mean to." Velra stepped forward slowly. Her compound eyes reflected the golden light as she studied him like a specimen under glass. "In 3,000 years," she said, "the Aegis of North has killed 93 people and driven 200 more into madness. It has never accepted anyone." She paused. Until now. Jake did not know what to say. He was just a maintenance worker. He fixed broken things and cleaned up messes. He was nobody important, but the armor disagreed. And across the Eternal Archive, every scientist, soldier, and scholar turned toward the central chamber with the same thought running through their minds. The armor had finally chosen someone, and it had chosen a human. They put Jake in a room with no windows and 4 guards outside the door. They called it protective custody, but it felt like a prison. For 2 days, no one told him anything. Food arrived through a slot in the wall. A medical drone checked his vital signs every 6 hours. He asked questions, but the guards did not answer. They just stood there like statues, watching him through the reinforced glass. On the 3rd day, the door finally opened. A creature made of soft light drifted into the room. It was Luminari, like the technician Jake had saved, but much older. Its glow was faded and gentle, like a candle near the end of its life. Translation devices did not work well with Luminari's speech, so when it spoke, the words seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am High Scholar Ithrin," it said. "I have studied the Aegis of North for 200 years, and I have never seen it do what it did for you." Jake sat up on his bed. "I did not ask it to do anything. I just fell and touched it." "Yes." Ithrin floated closer. That is what makes this so remarkable. The armor has tested countless warriors, kings, and champions. It rejected all of them. But a human maintenance worker touches it by accident, and it awakens for the first time in 3 millennia. The door opened again. This time, Commander Velrus entered with a massive reptilian creature behind her. The reptile stood nearly 3 meters tall and was covered in dark green scales. Its eyes were golden, and its teeth were visible even when its mouth was closed. "Admiral Korath of the Dreven Fleet," Velrus announced. "He has questions." The Admiral's voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "The Council is concerned. An artifact of immense power is bonded with a member of a species we barely understand. Some believe you should be killed before you become a threat." Jake felt his stomach drop. "I have not threatened anyone. Not yet." Korath moved closer, and Jake had to fight the urge to step back. "But power changes people. The armor destroyed everyone who touched it before. Why should we believe it will not destroy you too and take us with it?" "Because it has not," Ithrin said calmly. 3 days have passed. Jake Porter shows no signs of mental decay or physical deterioration. The armor accepted him. "We must learn why." Velrus clicked her mandibles impatiently. "The Council has decided. The human will attempt to wear the armor under controlled conditions. If he survives, we study him. If he does not, the problem solves itself." Jake stared at her. "And if I refuse? Then certain council members will push for your immediate termination." Korath did not sound happy about it, but he did not sound opposed either. "You are an unknown variable. The galaxy does not like unknown variables." Jake thought about running. He thought about fighting. But where would he go? He was alone on a ship full of aliens who saw him as either a test subject or a threat. He had no weapons, no allies, and no way home. Then he thought about every time someone had underestimated him. Every time someone had looked at him and seen nothing worth noticing. He thought about proving them wrong. "Fine," he said. "I will do it." The testing chamber was deep in the heart of the archive, surrounded by energy barriers and monitoring equipment. Scientists from 12 different species watched through armored glass as Jake walked toward the center of the room. The Aegis stood on a pedestal, glowing softly. It looked different now, more alive somehow. The symbols on its surface moved in patterns that almost made sense, like words in a language Jake had never learned but somehow recognized. Amy Reese was waiting by the entrance. She was human, one of only 4 on the entire ship. She worked as a xenobiologist, studying alien life forms. She and Jake had eaten lunch together sometimes, sharing stories about Earth and complaining about how the food dispensers never got human meals right. "You do not have to do this," she whispered. "We could find another way." Jake shook his head. "There is no other way. If I do not do this, they will never see us as anything more than primitives from a death world." Amy grabbed his arm. "Who cares what they think? Your life matters more than their approval. Maybe." Jake smiled slightly. "But I am tired of being invisible." He walked into the chamber, and the doors sealed behind him. The Aegis pulsed with light as he approached. Jake could feel it reaching out to him again, that strange presence brushing against his mind. It was curious. It was waiting. He stopped in front of the armor and placed his hands on its chest. The metal turned to liquid under his touch. It flowed up his arms like water running in reverse, coating his skin in warmth and light. Jake gasped as it spread across his shoulders, his chest, his legs. It covered him completely in seconds, and for one terrible moment, he could not breathe. Then the armor settled, and everything changed. Power surged through him. He could feel the ship around him, every system and circuit singing with energy. He could sense the people watching through the glass, their heartbeats and brainwaves as clear as music. He could see light that had no color and hear sounds that had no source. But there was something else too. Voices, hundreds of them, whispering in a language older than the stars. One voice rose above the others. It was not angry or demanding. It was relieved. After 3,000 years, it said through Jake's mouth, finally, a worthy soul. Jake opened his eyes. They glowed with golden light that filled the entire chamber. The scientists scrambled at their instruments. Commander Velris gripped her console so hard her claws left marks. Admiral Korath took one step backward, the first time anyone had seen him retreat from anything. High Scholar Ithran drifted forward, its ancient glow brightening with something that looked like joy. The Aegis has not just accepted him, it said softly. It has welcomed him. In 3,000 years, it has never welcomed anyone. Jake raised his armored hand and looked at it. The metal moved with his thoughts, reshaping itself to match his intentions. He felt strong in a way he had never felt before. Not just physically, but deep inside, where all his doubts and fears had lived for so long. The armor had seen everything he was. Every failure, every loss, every moment of weakness. And it had chosen him anyway. He did not understand why. He did not know what the voices wanted or what the power was supposed to be used for. But for the first time in his life, Jake Porter did not feel invisible. The galaxy was watching, and finally, they could see him. The training facility floated in empty space, far from any trade routes or colonies. It was a military station built for testing weapons that were too dangerous to use near populated worlds. Now it had a new purpose, teaching a human janitor how to use the most powerful artifact in the galaxy. Jake stood in the center of a reinforced arena. The Aegis covered him like a second skin, light and flexible despite looking like solid metal. Across from him, automated drones hovered in formation, their targeting systems locked onto his position. General Tessa Cole watched from the observation deck above. She was human, sent by Earth's government to oversee the situation. Her uniform was crisp, her posture perfect, and her expression revealed nothing. Jake had met soldiers before, but General Cole was something different. She carried authority like other people carried weight. "Begin," she said. The drones attacked. Energy bolts shrieked toward Jake from 6 directions. He raised his hands without thinking, and the armor responded. A shield of golden light appeared in front of him, absorbing the blasts and scattering them into harmless sparks. But the drones kept coming. They circled faster, firing from angles he could not predict. Jake twisted and dodged, the armor making him faster than he had ever been. He felt the shots before they reached him, his new senses warning him of danger. Half a second before it arrived, it was not enough. Bolt hit him in the back, and pain exploded through his body. He fell to his knees as memories flooded his mind. His mother coughing blood into her hands. The landlord changing the locks while he stood in the rain. The look on the foreman's face when he said Jake was not worth keeping. The armor fed on his emotions. It amplified everything he felt, the good and the bad. And right now, all he felt was the weight of every terrible thing that had happened to him. "Stop." General Cole's voice cut through the chaos. The drones powered down. Medical personnel rushed into the arena, but Jake waved them away. He pushed himself back to his feet, breathing hard. The armor dimming to a soft glow. High Scholar Ithran floated down from the observation deck. Its light flickered with concern. "The armor responds to your emotional state," it said. "When you feel strong, it makes you stronger. When you feel weak, it reminds you of everything that made you weak. You must learn to control what you feel." "How?" Jake pulled off his helmet, and the armor retreated down his arms, flowing back into a compact form at his waist. "I am not a monk. I cannot just turn off my feelings." "No," Ithran agreed. And that is precisely why the armor chose you. Jake frowned. I do not understand. Ithran led him to a quiet room overlooking the stars. General Cole joined them, along with a young Talosi trainee named Kira, who had been assigned to assist with Jake's training. Kira had 4 arms and curious eyes that never stopped moving. For centuries, Ithram began, we wondered why the Aegis rejected everyone who tried to wear it. We assumed it required great intelligence or strength, or perhaps some genetic compatibility we could not identify. We were wrong. The old luminary dimmed slightly, as if the explanation tired it. The Aegis was created by the North to fight an enemy called the Hollow. The Hollow do not destroy bodies. They destroy minds. They find your deepest fears and use them against you. They turn your own thoughts into weapons. So the armor needed someone who could resist that, General Cole said. Yes, but not by being immune to fear or pain. The North realized that suppressing emotion made people brittle. When the Hollow attacked, those who had buried their feelings shattered instantly. Their walls crumbled, and there was nothing left inside. Ithran's glow brightened as it turned to Jake. Most species evolved to minimize suffering. They developed mental techniques to block out trauma, to forget pain, to move past loss without truly processing it. Humans did not. You carry your wounds with you. You feel them every day. And yet you keep moving forward. Jake thought about his life. The hunger, the loneliness, the constant struggle. He had never forgotten any of it. He had just learned to live with it. The Aegis was not looking for someone without weaknesses, Ithran continued. It was looking for someone who had been broken and put themselves back together. Someone whose scars had become sources of strength instead of sources of shame. Kira leaned forward with fascination. But why humans specifically? Surely other species have suffered too. They have, Ithran acknowledged. But humans are unique in how they respond to suffering. They create art from their pain. They build communities around shared trauma. They tell stories about their darkest moments and find meaning in them. No other species transforms suffering into purpose the way humans do. General Cole crossed her arms. So the armor chose Jake because he has had a hard life and did not give up. Essentially, yes. Ithran turned back to Jake. You were not chosen despite your pain. You were chosen because of it. The armor saw every wound you carry and recognized something it had been searching for across 3,000 years. A soul that bends but does not break. Jake stared at his hands. Ordinary hands. Scarred from work, calloused from years of labor. He had always thought his past was something to escape. Now he was being told it was the very thing that made him worthy. What happens now? He asked. Before Ithran could answer, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed as soldiers ran past the observation window. Shouting orders in 6 languages, General Cole checked her communicator, and her face went pale. We just received a message from the Outer Rim, she said. Something is destroying colonies. Entire populations are vanishing overnight. The survivors are wrong, empty. Ithran's light flickered with what looked like terror. Show me, it whispered. Cole projected an image onto the wall. It showed a planet covered in darkness, cities reduced to silence, and people wandering the streets with blank eyes and slack faces. They were alive, but there was nothing behind their expressions. No thought, no feeling, no soul. The Hollow, Ithran said, its voice barely audible. After 3,000 years, they have returned. Jake felt the armor pulse at his waist, responding to the name. The voices inside it stirred, and for the first time, he heard fear in them. They are coming, Ithran said. They are coming for the Aegis, and they will destroy everything in their path to get it. Jake looked at the images of the empty people, the hollow shells that used to be living beings. He thought about Earth, about his friends, about every person in the galaxy who had no idea what was heading toward them. He put his helmet back on, and the armor flowed across his body. "Then we stopped them," he said. The defense fleet gathered at Sentinel-7, a station built on the edge of known space. 12 species had sent ships. Hundreds of vessels floated in formation, their weapons charged and ready. It was the largest military force assembled in over a century. It did not feel like enough. Jake stood on the bridge of the human frigate, steadfast, watching the darkness beyond the station. Captain Derek Vance stood beside him, arms crossed, jaw tight. Vance was a career military officer, the kind of man who stayed calm when everything around him was falling apart. "Scouts report the Hollow fleet will arrive in 3 hours," Vance said. "Their ships do not match anything in our databases. They absorb energy weapons. Physical projectiles pass through them. We do not know how to hurt them." Jake felt the armor humming beneath his skin. Since he had bonded with the Aegis, it never fully went away. It stayed with him, part of his body, part of his mind. "The armor knows," Jake said quietly. "It remembers fighting them before." "Good." Vance turned to face him directly. "Because right now, you are our only hope." No pressure. Despite everything, Jake almost smiled. Amy Reese was stationed on the medical ship Hope's Light, positioned far behind the battle lines. She had wanted to be closer, but Jake had convinced her to stay safe. Someone had to survive to tell the story if things went wrong. The 3 hours passed too quickly. The Hollow came from the darkness like a wave of nightmares. Their ships were not made of metal or energy. They were organic, twisted masses of flesh and shadow that moved without engines and fired without weapons. They simply reached out, and everything they touched went silent. The first ships to engage were Dreven warships, massive vessels bristling with cannons. They opened fire with everything they had. Plasma bolts and missiles streaked across space, striking the Hollow ship's dead center. Nothing happened. The weapons hit and vanished, absorbed into the dark mass without leaving a mark. The Hollow ships drifted forward, unconcerned, and when they touched the Dreven vessels, the screaming started. Jake could hear it through the communication channels. Soldiers howling in terror as something invaded their minds. Then the screaming stopped, replaced by silence. The Dreven ships went dark, their crews hollow and empty. "All ships fall back." Admiral Korath's voice thundered across the fleet channel. "Regroup at secondary positions." But falling back only delayed the inevitable. The Hollow kept coming, and everything they touched died in spirit, if not in body. Jake knew he could not wait any longer. "Captain," he said, "I need to get out there." Vance looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Airlock 3. Do what you have to do." Jake ran. The armor covered him completely before he reached the airlock. When the outer door opened, he did not hesitate. He stepped into the void and felt the Aegis, carrying him forward like a golden comet streaking toward the enemy. The Hollow noticed him immediately. Aha! 100 ships turned in his direction, their dark forms pulsing with hunger. Jake could feel their attention pressing against his mind, searching for weakness, trying to find a way inside. He did not let them in. The armor blazed with light as Jake dove into the enemy fleet. He raised his hands, and weapons appeared from nothing, blades of pure energy that cut through the Hollow ships like they were made of paper. Whatever the Aegis was made of, the Hollow could not absorb it. Jake carved through 3 ships before they could react. Then 5 more. Then 10. But there were hundreds. They surrounded him, pressing closer, their whispers growing louder in his mind. They showed him visions of his mother's face, twisted and cold. They showed him friends abandoning him. They showed him a universe where he was alone and forgotten forever. Jake screamed and pushed back. The armor flared, creating a shock wave that scattered the nearest ships. But more came to take their place, always more. Then the voices inside the Aegis spoke to him clearly for the first time. "We were like you once," they said. "We were the North. We fought this enemy when the universe was young." Images flooded Jake's mind. He saw the North as they had been, beings of light and wisdom, builders of wonders that spanned galaxies. He saw them create the Aegis as their final weapon. And he saw them make a choice. "We could not defeat the Hollow with power alone," the voices continued. "So we gave ourselves to the armor. Our souls became its strength. Our memories became its wisdom. We died so that one day, someone worthy could finish what we started." Jake understood now. The Aegis was not just a weapon. It was a tomb, a monument, a sacrifice. "What do I have to do?" he asked. "Stop fighting alone. That is what makes humans special. You are weak individually, but together, you become something greater. The armor can amplify your connections, just as it amplifies your strength. Reach out. Share what you are." Jake closed his eyes in the middle of the battle. The hollow ships pressed closer, their whispers turning to screams. But Jake was not listening to them anymore. He thought about Amy, waiting on the medical ship. He thought about Captain Vance, holding the line. He thought about General Cole and Kira, and even Admiral Karth. He thought about every person in the fleet, who was fighting and afraid. Then he reached out and touched them all. The Aegis exploded with light that crossed the entire battlefield. Every ship in the fleet felt it, a warmth that pushed back the cold, a presence that filled the empty spaces the Hollow tried to create. Jake was not just wearing the armor anymore. He was sharing it. Soldiers who had been paralyzed with fear found their courage returning. Weapons that had failed against the Hollow began to work, the armor's energy spreading to everything the fleet possessed. Ships that had gone dark flickered back to life as their crews woke from the mental attacks. Together, the fleet pushed forward. The Hollow were not prepared for this. They had expected to face one enemy and found themselves facing thousands. The golden light burned them where nothing else could. And for the first time in their ancient existence, they retreated. But as the dark ships fell back, something massive emerged from the shadows behind them. The hive ship was the size of a moon. It moved slowly, deliberately, as if it had all the time in the universe. And from its core, a voice spoke directly into Jake's mind. "Little light," it said. "Little human. You think you have won? You have only made us hungry." Jake stared at the approaching nightmare. He could feel the souls of the North trembling inside the armor. Even they were afraid, but fear had never stopped Jake before. "Then come and get me," he said. The hive ship continued its approach, and Jake prepared for the fight of his life. The hive ship blotted out the stars. Its surface was alive, pulsing with veins of darkness that spread like cracks in reality. No weapon in the fleet could scratch it. No ship could get close without being swallowed by the nightmare it projected. Jake knew what he had to do. "I need to go inside," he said over the command channel. "The only way to stop it is from the core." Admiral Karth's voice came back immediately. "That is suicide? We cannot protect you in there." "I know." Jake looked at the monster floating in space, waiting for them. "But if I do not try, everyone dies anyway." There was silence on the channel. Then General Cole spoke. "I am coming with you. Earth did not send me here to watch from a distance." "So am I," Captain Vance added. "The Steadfast has a boarding team ready. If we punch through the outer membrane, we can get you to the core." More voices joined in. Kira from the training station, a squad of driven soldiers. Even Commander Velrus, who had never shown interest in anything beyond efficiency, volunteered her personal shuttle. Jake felt something warm spread through his chest. 3 weeks ago, no one on this ship had known his name. Now they were willing to die beside him. "Thank you," he said. "All of you." Let us finish this. The Steadfast led the charge. Its shields blazed with golden light borrowed from the Aegis as it dove toward the hive ship. The darkness reached for them, trying to crush the small vessel, but Jake pushed back with everything he had. They hit the membrane and punched through. Inside the hive ship, reality did not work correctly. The walls moved and breathed. Gravity shifted without warning. Shadows whispered secrets that tried to worm their way into the minds of everyone aboard. General Cole kept her team focused. Eyes forward. Do not listen to anything except your commander. Move. They fought through corridors that changed shape around them. Hollow drones attacked in waves creatures that had once been people, now empty shells serving a hungry master. Jake cut them down with blades of light, trying not to think about who they had been before. Deeper and deeper they went. Jake could feel the core getting closer, a pit of absolute darkness that pulled at his soul like a black hole. Finally, they reached it. The heart of the hive ship was a vast chamber filled with nothing. Not darkness, nothing. A void so complete that looking at it hurt. And in the center of that void floated a figure. It might have been North once. It had the same shape, the same basic form. But whatever light had filled it was gone, replaced by an emptiness that radiated hunger. "Welcome, little human," the hollow voice said. Its words came from everywhere and nowhere. "Welcome to the end." Jake stepped forward, leaving the others at the entrance. This was his fight. "You were one of them," he said. "One of the North. What happened to you?" The figure drifted closer. "I was the first to understand the truth. Life is suffering. Consciousness is pain. The only mercy is to end both." It spread its arms wide. "I have freed billions from the burden of existence. I will free billions more. And when I am done, the universe will finally know peace." "That is not peace," Jake said. "That is death. Is there a difference?" The voice smiled, and it was the most horrible thing Jake had ever seen. "Your species knows suffering better than most. I have seen your memories. I know what you have endured. Join me, and you will never hurt again. You will never lose anyone again. You will simply stop." Jake thought about the offer. For one terrible moment, he actually considered it. Then he remembered his mother's smile. The way she had laughed even when they had nothing. The song she had sung when he was scared. She had suffered too, more than he would ever know. But she had never stopped loving. She had never stopped trying. She had never stopped living. "You are wrong," Jake said. "Suffering is not the problem. Running from it is." He raised his hands, and the Aegis blazed with light brighter than a star. "I have been broken," he continued. "I have lost people I loved. I have felt pain that I thought would kill me. But I am still here. And every scar I carry taught me something. Every wound made me stronger. Every loss showed me what matters." The voice recoiled from the light. "You cannot defeat me. I am eternal. I am the end of all things. Maybe." Jake stepped closer. "But endings are not all that matters. What matters is what comes before. The moments we share. The people we love. The lives we build even though we know they will not last forever." The souls of the North stirred inside the armor. They had waited 3,000 years for this moment, and now they added their strength to Jake's. "Life is worth the pain," Jake said, "and I am going to prove it." He unleashed everything. Light exploded from the Aegis, filling the void at the heart of the hive ship. The hollow voice screamed as the emptiness inside it was filled with something it had forgotten long ago. Memories of warmth. Echoes of connection. The faintest ghost of hope. It was too much for a being that had lived in darkness for millennia. The voice shattered. The hive ship began to collapse around them. General Cole grabbed Jake's arm and pulled him toward the exit. The team ran as reality crumbled, barely making it back to the steadfast before the entire structure folded in on itself. Outside, the hollow fleet fell silent. Without the voice to guide them, the dark ships drifted aimlessly, then began to dissolve. The nightmare that had threatened to consume the galaxy faded. Like a bad dream in the morning light, it was over. 3 weeks later, Jake stood before the Galactic Council on their capital world. Representatives from every major species filled the chamber, watching him with expressions ranging from curiosity to respect to something that might have been awe. The High Chancellor, an ancient being whose species Jake did not recognize, addressed him directly. "Jake, Porter of Earth, you have done what no other being in 3,000 years could accomplish. You have worn the aegis of Nareth and defeated an enemy that nearly destroyed our ancestors. The Council owes you a debt that can never be repaid." Jake shifted uncomfortably. He was still not used to people paying attention to him. "I did not do it alone," he said. "Everyone in that fleet fought. Humans, Dreven, Ketheri, Luminari. We all fought together. That is the only reason we won." The Chancellor nodded slowly. "And perhaps that is the lesson. For too long, we have dismissed your species as primitive newcomers. We were wrong. Humanity has something the rest of us forgot long ago. You face your pain instead of hiding from it. You grow stronger from your struggles instead of weaker. And you fight for each other, even when the odds are impossible." The Chancellor rose and made a gesture that Jake's translator identified as the highest form of respect. "From this day forward, humanity is recognized as a guardian species of the galactic community. You will stand beside us as protectors, not beneath us as children. Welcome to the family." The chamber erupted in sounds that Jake eventually realized were applause. Later, outside the council building, Amy found him sitting on a bench, staring at the sky. "How do you feel?" she asked, sitting beside him. Jake thought about it. The armor was quiet now, resting inside him like a patient friend. The souls of the North were at peace, their long war finally finished. And somewhere across the galaxy, a species that had been overlooked and underestimated was being welcomed as equals. "Tired," he admitted. "But good." Amy smiled. "Did the armor ever tell you why it really chose you? Out of everyone in the universe?" Jake looked at his hands. The same hands that had scrubbed floors and fixed broken pipes. The same hands that had carried wounded strangers through fire and touched an artifact that had killed hundreds. "Because I break," he said softly. "And I heal. And I keep going anyway." Amy leaned her head on his shoulder. They sat together in silence, watching ships rise into the endless sky. Across the galaxy, the story spread. The tale of a human janitor who wore the armor of gods. The legend of a species that turned pain into power and suffering into strength. And in quiet moments, when other beings faced their own darkness, they remembered what a human had taught them. Not every strength roars. Some strengths simply endure.